Welcome, everyone. My name is Tristan Claridge, and I'm the convener of this webinar series for the International Social Capital Association. And the association's mission is to advance the research and application of the social capital concept. And we hold regular webinars, and we're in fact holding a big international conference next year in Dubai. In this session, we welcome Dr. Haluk Gedikoglu for a presentation titled Dynamics of Social Interaction in Technology Adoption, Social Capital versus Social Learning. I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Haluk, presently a postdoctoral fellow in the Division of Applied Science, Social Sciences at the University of Missouri. Haluk has a rich academic journey that began with his undergraduate studies in agricultural economics at University and led him to advanced degrees in the US and Europe, including a PhD in agricultural economics from the University of Missouri, an MSc in economics from Iowa State University, and an MSc in international agricultural sciences from Humboldt University in Berlin. Before his current fellowship, Haluk served as an associate professor in agricultural economics at Konya Foods and Agricultural University, earlier taught at Lincoln University of Missouri and University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. His research explores how social capital shapes farmers' decisions to adopt sustainable agricultural practices, going beyond the limits of traditional models of technology adoption. He also investigates consumer behavior, willingness to pay, and new food products and labels. We're delighted you've agreed to give this webinar. Welcome, and over to you for the presentation.
Thanks so much for this great introduction, Tristan. So I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to present our ongoing research. And I would really appreciate to hear your comments and suggestions how to make this research better. So today I'm going to talk to you about our research on technology adoption. And we had in the past, we've been working on this technology adoption for a while, but we had difficulty in explaining farmers' behavior, especially on water and soil conservation practices. And we were lucky to have Lyndon Robinson visit us when I was in Konya, and he introduced us this social capital concept, and we decided maybe we can have that included our research. And today what I'm going to present is all about our journey to including social capital to our technology adoption research. So this is our actually second study that we analyze social capital. So therefore, I would greatly appreciate all your comments and suggestions how to make this better and how we can expand that. So as far as my presentation today. So I will briefly give you background information about the region that we conducted this study, and then I will go over the literature review again briefly, and then come to defining and measuring social capital, which was the major difficulty that we had, conducting this study. And then I will briefly mention the empirical model, the data, and then I will go with the results and the conclusion sections. So as far as the background information, Konya region is an important agricultural region in Turkey, and it constitutes around 11% of the arable land of Turkey. And it has a significant agricultural production. For example, as of 2024, Konya provided, 11% of wheat production, 14% of barley production, 8% of corn production, 9% of sunflower seed production, and 35% of sugar beet production of Turkey. So it's a really productive area in agriculture. However, it faces significant constraints in terms of the water availability. So average precipitation in Konya is around 330 millimeters per year, which is lower than the Turkey's average of 573 millimeters per year. And the farmers rely heavily on groundwater for irrigation. Therefore, the region faces significant water and soil resources related problems. So it's estimated that around 1,000 sinkholes occurred in Konya region due to over use of ground resources. So this is a sample picture. These are the cars, and this is the size of the sinkholes, and this is the map of the sinkholes that are occurring in Konya. So we have significant amount of sinkholes occurring in the region, and majority of the overuse of ground water is because of the unregistered irrigation wells in the region. So around 75,000 out of 90,000 wells, irrigation wells are unregistered, and they're all spread out the region. So that's the major problem. The region, the Konya region, is around here, and it is also significantly prone to wind erosion. So therefore, it is facing significant water and soil related problems. So to prevent some of those problems, the government promotes adoption of drip irrigation systems, no-tillage agriculture, and crop rotation. There are currently government support for cost share programs to around 50% of the cost of establishment for drip irrigation system, but there are currently no support programs for no-till and crop rotation. So, and there are no restrictions on using any of those technologies. So it is based on the free will of the farmers. So therefore, it's very important for the region to have more farmers using those technologies. So when we look at the literature, sustainable use of natural resources relies on collaboration among farmers. The existence of social capital such as trusts and social norms has been identified as a prerequisite for the success of collaboration among farmers. However, the creation of social capital has been identified as a long process which can take many years to establish. And when we look at the studies on technology adoption to be able to promote use of these, drip irrigation, no-till farming, and crop rotation in the region, we have seen that the previous studies on technology adoption analyze the social interaction between farmers as a mean for information gathering or social learning. So most of the studies look at the interaction between farmers as a way of learning from each other. This excludes for sure the strategic and interaction to invest in social relationship, or more specifically into social capital. Especially for technologies related to management of natural resources, social capital could be influential through social norms. So most of the studies, therefore, did not include social capital when they analyze interaction between farmers, technology adoption, and that's what we want to look at. So the first objective of this paper is to identify and disentail the influence of social learning and social norms on adoption of new technologies. And the second objective of this paper is to identify the relative importance of social capital motives such as moral norms, social norms on technology adoption. So we want to understand specifically what is the influence of when a farmer interacts with other people, what is the influence of learning from them versus what is the influence of social norms. And when we look at the social capital motives, moral norms, altruism, goodwill, and social norms, how they specifically influence technology adoption. So one difficulty we faced when we try to learn more about social capital is how we can define it and how we can measure it. So, according to Putnam, social capital is defined as the features of social organizations such as trust, networks, and norms that facilitate coordination and cooperation for mutual benefit. However, Robinson 2002 indicates that the definitions of social capital in previous studies are not precise and lack capital-like properties. Therefore, an alternative definition of social capital is provided by Robinson 2012 study is an extension of theory of human motivation of Maslow. So when you look at the theory of human motivation of Maslow, we see that when people live, they first want to satisfy their physiological needs, such as eating, drinking, breathing. And once they satisfy those needs, they try to satisfy their safety needs, like safe housing, financial safety. And once those are satisfied, then they look at their needs for psychological needs, and those starts with the love needs. So they try to um, be happy by loving other people and by being loved by those people. And once they satisfy, they look at their need for being respected by others, and that's called the esteem. And once that's satisfied, then they start to satisfy their self-actualization needs. So, for example, are you the person that you always dreamed about yourself? So if you also satisfied that, then now you can be fully happy. For example, in countries like Turkey, we always have people saying, if I had an opportunity, I could be, a president, I could be this person. So they always feel unhappiness because they cannot establish their self-actualization. So that based on that concept, Robinson 2012 defines social capital as sympathy or sense of obligation that a person or a group of person has toward another person or a group of people. So investment in social capital motives generate relational goods which then satisfy the emotional needs of human being as identified by the theory of human motivation of Maslow. So if you make those investment in social capital motives, then you can happiness by being loved by other people or getting respect from other people or establishing your self-actualization. So in those cases, making investment in social capital motives create the relational goods that make you happy. So in general, the social capital for person I between person J can be composed in four different components. So person I's social capital with own ideal self. So this is like self-actualization. And then well-being of person J. This is called altruism. And social capital of person J from person I. So this is like the goodwill or the respect from others or the esteem. And the social capital of person I for person J. So this is the love needs, and this is called the belonging. So those are the four social capital motives that are identified by the Robinson 2012 paper. So in terms of these capital motives, then a person can use his or her endowment not only for his or her own consumption, then the person can use his or her endowment for social capital with oneself, which is self-actualization, income for others, altruism. So the person can also give some of his funds or endowment to other people that he or she likes, like the family is supporting their children. Social capital of person J from I or from person I. So respect from others. So maybe some people prefer to spend money or funds to get respect from other people. So maybe you go to, for example, a hairdresser that your friends go and you feel, esteem from them. And social capital of person I from person J, the belonging. So maybe sometimes you donate money to your community or you spend money on your community to get their uh, feeling that you belong to that community. So in general, for example, people living in other foreign people living in other countries sometimes have difficulty in establishing that relationship because they sometimes don't feel like they give enough to feel the belonging in that country. So technology adoption and social interaction. So this part especially we are working on how we can connect social capital to technology adoption. So we have three technologies: drip irrigation, crop rotation, and no-tillage agriculture, or three practices. So in terms of the observability of the benefits, so we use some of the concepts from the rural sociology, uh, by Rogers, who is a very famous rural sociology. So we say drip irrigation has higher observability of the benefits in comparison to, for example, no-tillage agriculture, because when the farmer uses drip irrigation, he or she can immediately see the amount of water efficiently used and increase their yields, or even benefit of using that very, very soon. So self-actualization or moral norms, doing the right thing, and the goodwill or the altruism are expected to be more influential for technologies with less observable benefits. So we hypothesize that, if a person makes an investment for self-actualization or goodwill or the altruism, then it means they might be more concerned about doing the right thing. So therefore, they might be more likely to adopt technologies that are difficult to see their benefits. Influence on the common property resource. So drip irrigation, for example, use of that drip irrigation is influencing efficient use of groundwater, which is the common property resource. So we say belonging or the social norm uh, and altruism are expected to be more influential on technologies influencing the common property. So that's the hypothesis that we established. So because the common property resource is used by more people in the community, if there is a social norm or the belonging feeling in the community, then the people will be more likely to adopt those technologies that is influencing everyone in the community. Performance being dependent on the farm level conditions. So when we look at the drip irrigation, it is you can learn the uncertainties from your neighbor by waiting your neighbor to adapt. But there are so many also factors that influence the performance of drip irrigation based on own land. For example, the height of the well that you need to have, the conditions of the land for which you need to establish the system. But whereas you look at the crop rotation, it is less, its performance is less relevant to specific farm. So it can be easily learned how to manage it from your neighbors. And no-tillage farming is in between. The slope of the land, for example, if your neighbor has a flat land, but if you have a slope land, you can learn a little bit from your neighbor, but you still need to experience it yourself. So based on that aspect, performance being dependent on the farm level conditions, we say drip irrigation has the highest dependency of its performance based on the farm level conditions. So in that case, social learning or learning from your neighbors and waiting for your neighbors to adapt is expected to be low for drip irrigation than the other two practices. On the other hand, uncertainty of economic profits and high initial investment. So in that case, social learning is expected to be high for especially drip irrigation, because has the highest uncertainty and highest initial investment cost among those three technologies. So in that case, learning from your neighbor will be higher for drip irrigation, but in the above case, in this case, we expect learning from your neighbor is lowest for your for the drip irrigation. So there are two conflicting effects for the social learning here. So as far as the empirical model, we use a treatment effects model. So for each of the four social capital attributes, we define the decision to invest in social capital attribute using a binary variable, where di is the binary variable that's equal to 1 if the farmer invested in the corresponding social capital attribute and equal to 0 otherwise, and di star is a latent variable that represents the net benefit of investing in a social capital attribute. And the decision to adopt a soil and water conservation practice, like the three of the practice that I mentioned, can be modeled based on whether the farmer has invested in social capital attribute or not. So we have two regimes separately. So the first one is if the farmer decided not to invest in a social capital attribute, and the second regime is if the farmer decided to invest in a social capital attribute. The average treatment effect of investing in a social capital attribute on adoption of a conservation practice can be estimated using the summation across all observations, the difference between the probability to adopt if they invested in a social capital attribute minus probability to adopt if they as if they didn't invested in a social capital attribute. So as far as the data for the current study was collected through a face-to-face survey of 255 farmers in Konya region of Turkey in 2018. So we have small farms. So average farm size is 20 hectares, and average size of a cattle herd is 18, and average size of a sheep and goat herd is 152. So average age is 15, and most frequent level of education is primary school degree. So in terms of adoption rate, so we have 51% of the farmers in our data use drip irrigation, 23% of them use no-tillage farming, and crop rotation was more common. So we had 63% of the farmers used crop rotation. And in terms of indicating whether or not they have a neighbor adopted this practice, we had 80% of the farmers indicated that they have a neighbor who adopted drip irrigation system, and we had 23% of the farmers who indicated that they have a neighbor who use no-tillage farming, and we have 42% of the farmers who indicated that they have a neighbor who use crop rotation. So we can see here, for example, percentage of farmers who had a neighbor using drip irrigation is 80%, but among them only 51% had adopted drip irrigation. So how did we measure social capital? So this is one of the difficulties that we faced. So we used a similar method that is used by Robinson 2012 paper. They did it among the students in the colleges, but we did it among the farmers that we interviewed. So we provided them a scenario, a hypothetical scenario. And in the scenario, we said, assume due to the drought happened this year, there is lack of enough food for people in our town. You are given 100 kilograms of wheat from a help organization, and you are told that you can use these 100 kilograms of wheat any way you prefer. You can decide if you would use wheat fully for your own consumption or share it with others. Please indicate below how you would split the wheat among alternative ways to use it. There is no right or wrong usage. Just make sure that the total adds up to 100. You don't have to share wheat for the ways you don't prefer. So amount of wheat for my own consumption, amount of wheat to another farmer who lives in my town that we promise to each other to share food in case we would have food shortages due to drought in the town. That person does not know you received 100 kilograms of wheat from a help organization. So this is the self-actualization, keeping a promise. Amount of wheat to my farmer relative who also lives in my town. So this is the altruism. Amount of wheat to whom town official, uh, the amount of wheat to the town of official to show my goodwill. So this is the goodwill or the esteem. And amount of wheat for the donations collected in the town to be given to those in need. The contributors to this event will be known by everyone in the town. And this is the belonging aspect. So this is the distribution of the results for our hypothetical experiment. So on average, farmers kept 52 kilograms for their own use, 12 kilograms for promise keeping attribute, 11 kilogram for altruism, 8 kilogram for goodwill, and 17 kilogram for belonging. So the highest social capital attribute was given for belonging. And we had around 52 farmers who kept everything, the 100 kilogram for themselves. So besides that 52 farmers, we had others split it in one way or another in social capital. So on average, we can say farmers are not fully selfish. So we did some robustness checks before we did the regressions. We checked for endogeneity, especially for neighbor effect. So we used a control function method. We use having a neighbor using sprinkle irrigation for drip irrigation system, and use neighbor using manure for no tillage, and using a micro irrigation system for crop rotation as an predictive variable. And we also tested the endogeneity of the treatment for self-selection into treatment, and we didn't find any evidence for treatment endogeneity. So as far as the regression results, I mean, I will just go over the basic results. We did other results also, but that's in our paper, and I'm happy to share it with you. So this is the so for because we have self-actualization, or the moral norms we call it also. We have altruism, we have goodwill or the esteem needs, and we have belonging and social or the social norm. So we have four social capital attributes. So it means I'm going to show you four different tables. So I will start with self-actualization or moral norms. So this is the adoption of drip irrigation, and this part is adoption of no-till, and this part is adoption of crop rotation. So we have two sets of results, one for without treatment, or one for without investing in self-actualization, and one for with investing in self-actualization. So we can look at the first average treatment effect. It means the effect of investing in self-actualization on the adoption of the technology. So we see when the farmer invests in um, self-actualization or more norms, adoption rate of drip irrigation increases by 3.7%, and that's statistically significant. The investment in self-actualization is not statistically significant for no-till farming, and on the other hand, the farmers who uh, invested in self-actualization increases adoption rate of crop rotation 9.1%, and that's also statistically significant. So overall, we can see investing in social capital, specific self-actualization, increases adoption rate for drip irrigation and crop rotation. When we look at the neighbor effect, though, having a neighbor who adopted drip irrigation increases probability to adopt drip irrigation by 27.5% when there is no investment in social capital, but increases probability to adopt drip irrigation by 18.9% when there is investment in social capital. When we look at the adoption of no-till farming, we see that the having a neighbor is not statistically significant when there is no social capital investment, but it increases probability to adopt by 75% when there is investment in mm, social capital. So we can, and it's not, neighbor effect is not statistically significant for crop rotation in this case. So what we can see here is neighbor effect is higher for a practice for which the performance is not highly dependent on farm level attributes. So that farm level attributes are becoming more influential in this case. So therefore, the neighbor effect is higher for a practice for which that's not highly that's not highly reliant on the farm level specifications. But we said drip irrigation has more farm level, drip irrigation's performance is more relevant to farm level specifications, and we see that the influence of neighbor is smaller for that aspect. So when we look at the goodwill or the respect from others, again, we see that it is the average treatment effect is statistically significant, and when the farmer invests in goodwill aspect, the adoption rate increases by 4.2%. It is not statistically significant for no-till farming, and it increases adoption rate by 11.4% for crop rotation. We said uh, when we said the crop rotation is a practice for which the benefit is less observable. So we can see that goodwill or having the respect from others is highly influential on a practice for which the benefits are less observable. Drip irrigation, on the other hand, has benefits that are easily observable. So we see that the influence of that social capital is attribute is smaller on that technology. So we can see differences in the influence of social capital attributes based on the specification of a technology. Social norms. So we said social norms are expected to influence a technology which is influencing the common resource, common property resource, and that is justified because social norms is only statistically significant on drip irrigation system, which is the one that is influencing the common property resource. And altruism, again, we said it would be influential on the the technology that is influencing the common property. Again, it is only statistically significantly influencing adoption of drip irrigation, and it increased the adoption rate by 3.2%. So as far as conclusion, our results indicate both social capital and learning from neighbors can positively influence adoption of new technologies. However, if the technology's performance depends more on farm level conditions, learning can be low. In those cases, social capital motives can be used by policymakers to increase the adoption of the technology. We also found The relative importance of social capital components can differ based on the specifications of the technology. For technologies with less observable benefits, such as uh, crop rotation or other conservation practices, self-actualization and goodwill components of social capital can be used to promote adoption. On the other hand, for technologies influencing the use of common property resources, uh, belonging or the social norms and altruism components of social capital can be used to enhance adoption. So I thank you for listening, and I would greatly appreciate your comments and suggestions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Haluk. That's a wonderful presentation. Really interesting research that you've been doing. We're going to have some questions and discussion now, so feel free to either raise your hand, which you'll find under the React button within Zoom, or you can post a question in the chat. And when we come to you, if you could unmute yourself to ask your question. But of course, if you're not in a position to do that, you don't want to, or you can't talk for any reason, feel free to let me know, and I'll happily read out the question on your behalf. So there is a question in the chat just asking if you could make the slides available, if that's possible.
Sure, sure. I can definitely do that, and I would be happy to do that.
Okay, if you send them to me, I can then forward them on to the participants who registered for the session. I've also posted in the chat links to the paper that you wrote with your co-author, as well as a link to the Robertson et al. 2012 paper that talks about
Yeah,
that method of measuring social capital.
sure. That's very
Uh,
important paper.
So perhaps I could start with a question, and then, of course, if anybody else has a question, feel free to either raise your hand or post them in the chat. I'm interested in your reflection on the way in which you've conceptualized and measured social
Mhm.
capital following Lyndon Robertson and his
Mhm.
co-authors' work in this space. So interested in a reflection on what you see as the benefits and perhaps if there's any disadvantages with that kind of approach, because it is quite different than the way we often see social capital measured. Social
Mhm.
capital is very commonly measured as some aspects of networks or trust surveys, looking at
Mhm.
social norms. But you've taken quite a different kind of approach, which is seems to be quite strongly linked to the underlying mechanisms that you're defining as what social capital is. So
Mhm.
interested in a reflection on the strengths and weaknesses of that approach.
Right. I mean, we need to because we are in agriculture, because we need to define policy recommendations, and therefore we need to quantify as much as possible, and we need to give specific numbers, measurements. And it's very difficult to do that with social capital as you measure it with networks. I mean, we have seen, for example, most of the studies use becoming a member, having a membership to a social organization such as cooperative is used as a measure for social capital. But what we have seen is, I mean, I have shown that in my slides, but I didn't go over that. Um, just a second. Cooperative membership is not always found to be significantly influencing the technology adoption, because farmers could be a member of a cooperative and they could be getting some information, but that may not really influencing their behavior. So in that case, our results show that cooperative membership is not significantly influencing. I mean, it may or it may not, but it's very hard to make the connection between becoming a member of an organization and how it's going to influence your behavior on a technology or marketing. So therefore, we didn't find a strong relationship. Or sometimes we have seen studies using trust, but it is also very hard to put a quantitative measurement on trust. So therefore, we use this method. Of course, it can be expanded. There could be other motivations on which you could use your endowment, or you can make your preferences. So the negative side of it is, are we comprehensively including all the motivations of a person in when they use their um, endowments? I don't think so, but this is just a starting point. So we would be happy to include other ways uh, that we can expand on our methodology for sure.
Yeah, and certainly the work that Leonard Robertson's done exploring those five motives that, through thousands and thousands of surveys, they've looked for other motives for
Mhm.
behavior and they haven't found them. They all
Mhm.
seem to keep coming back to those five
Mhm.
motives. So it seems like there's a very solid foundation there for using that methodology. And to put it into the way that I would describe it, it seems like the membership in a cooperative is an indicator of social capital,
Mhm.
but what you're doing is you're directly connecting it
Mhm.
to people's behavior.
Mhm.
Literally, I guess the saying would be putting their money where their mouth is, that if they're
Mhm.
quite literally given something that has value, and then you're observing their actual behavior, whether they keep it for themselves or they give it to others and make it available. And so it is a much more direct indicator of
Right.
their of social capital, of their connection with others and how they internalize the well-being of other members of their community. Whereas the membership in a cooperative is, I guess, a more distant kind of indicator of the same thing. And I think that's the way I would describe the benefit of using that kind of measurement methodology. And I posted in the chat as you were presenting that that's quite different than the way that social capital is often measured, but it seems to have
Mhm.
some significant strengths.
Yeah, right. That's true. I mean, um, we try to directly link to the behavior, and as you said, this is more directly can be linked. I mean, especially with like technology adoption and social capital part that I try to classify the technologies and how each component might be linked. That's where we have also difficulty. We try to conceptualize, we need to work. So this is as far as I see just start, and we hope to be able to expand and especially make the conceptual framework more stronger, and how we can make it more I mean, it's sometimes also difficult how you classify the technologies, because it's hard to observability of the benefits, or the influencing the common resources, I mean common resource. So there can be always ways to make it more expanded, because these are not strict rules. It's hard to measure them. It's just we try to conceptualize it this way. And I
Yeah.
would be happy to. I would appreciate any comments and how we can make it. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so any participants who are here, feel free to get your questions in and have some input on this, of course. Uh, Raymond, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question or comment.
Yeah, thank you very much. How should I pronounce your name?
Haluk,
Sorry, very
Haluk.
difficult. Sorry, I'm from the
Okay,
Philippines. Very interesting study. I just
thank you.
wondering, number one, do all the farmers in your study, or are they all aware of these technologies prior to the treatment?
Mhm.
That's my
Yes,
first question. Yes, okay. So
yes.
what was the
Because
means for this awareness?
we ask that if you are aware of this technology or not, and then we only chose the ones that are aware of those.
Okay. For those farmers who are aware, to what degree are the other farmer neighbors not aware?
The other farmers not aware. Uh, I don't know of that. Yeah, that's a good question.
Because
I
that
don't
could
know.
also have
Right.
could
Yeah,
have an
that's a good.
influence on
Right.
farmers who
Right.
are adopting.
Yeah.
Because based on Rogers' classification, these adopters will be innovators and
Sure.
early adopters. So that
Right.
could have an influence.
That
The
that that
second,
that can that can especially sorry that can especially be true for no-till farming. I mean, among those like we did, I didn't include all the technologies. There were so many technologies that not many people use, just 2%. And especially with no-till farming, I think you are right. Some of them may not be aware of it, of the neighbors, yeah, especially also. Yeah.
Yeah, and also because I think social norms can influence adoption in terms of, what will my neighbors say if I use
Yeah.
this adoption and my neighbors who are using don't use it will laugh at me.
Sure. I think that's a great point. To be honest, I think all those four components are influencing the technologies one way or another. As you said, what if everyone uses but I don't use? But therefore, we try to hypothesize. I mean, that's the difficulty we face really. In terms of the relative size of the influence. I mean, is it more influencing, uh, a common resource where people will, because of we have the sinkholes, is it like, if you use it, I mean, if you don't use it, and if you really use the groundwater inefficiently, will you have more social pressure from your neighbor versus if your neighbors are using crop rotation, but if you don't, not many people will say, I mean, people will say, okay, this person is not smart because, crop rotation is beneficial. So we said in this case, the influence of social norm would be more on, a technology that is influencing everyone, common property, versus a technology that is only influencing the farmer individually. But in both cases, it could be influencing, but the relative size of influence would be more on that common property resource influencing technology.
Okay, can I ask another question, Tristan?
Yes,
Sure.
go ahead.
My next question is prior to the research and after the research, were you able to collect any narratives on motivations for using technologies and not using technologies?
Hmm. I mean, um, the motivation in general, the drip irrigation in the region, it is really. I mean, they will eventually have to go to take this technology because the height of the wells are around like 300 meters. They get the water from so deep depth in the ground, so they try to decide, when to adopt it, like for drip irrigation or the pressurized irrigation systems. But for crop, for no-till farming, no, we didn't get, it could be related to, also availability of the extension services in the region and how good they are in introducing that no-till, because it is not an urgent technology like an irrigation system. As far as the crop rotation, the main motivation would be the yields, I suppose. The yields, if you do it every year, the yields goes down. So that, and also risk aversion, because in the market they try to diversify their income by putting different crops so that they can because they have land in different areas, so they might be doing corn in one area this year and doing wheat on the another area this year also. So they rotate both within the area and also in between areas over the years.
I have so many questions
But I
because
would be
my
happy
my
to, communicate with you. I put my email, you have my email, and I put it here also, in the chat
okay, I'll
box.
do it.
So
I
I
have so
would
many
be
more questions.
How
Like
so
for
about one more,
example,
Raymond? How about one
one
more
more.
I would be
Okay,
question?
happy to,
okay, sorry.
communicate with you, meet you over the Zoom. I've been working on this technology adoption, since 2005, and we were really limited in explaining this conservation practice. So we were very lucky by Lyndon Robinson to visit us and give us an idea. Maybe we can use that, and luckily it helped us to expand. I mean, the influence is not big, 3%, 5%. But when you look at the literature, the individual influence of different factors are in general in that size. So we could at least add another factor that can explain that behavior. So it's not a huge
Okay.
influence, but it's an huge influence.
Okay. I guess we have to set up a Zoom for ourselves because my dissertation is about that exactly. I'm also working on farmers. I'm also working
Okay.
on,
Sure,
but
I
more
would be happy.
particularly in, yeah, particularly in organic agriculture, the adoption of
Mhm.
this technology.
I
So
see.
my questions would be, I just throw in the questions, okay?
Sure.
The quality of the extension services, how effective are the extension workers,
Not good.
and
I mean, in Turkey, it's not good. We don't have extension people showing them. The companies have better extension. So I mean, the companies have better ways of interest. I mean, because they are profit motivated, of course, they just go to the farmer. They establish, sample farms. I mean, the where they can see sample areas. So they're much influential.
right? Other questions, of course, future research, like qualitative
Yeah.
research, getting narratives from this, following them up. And
Sure.
there's another question. I forgot about it. The use of other adoption models. Uh, I'm trying to combine four theories
Mhm.
on adoption. And
Well,
I
it's
found
hard.
out, yeah, I think it works.
It
So
is,
I'm not just
yeah.
using Rogers. I'm using other adoption theories and combining them together
But the
with
Rogers,
a, yeah, business model. I'll be submitting my dissertation proposal this
I
month.
see. Sure, that's
And
great. Let me know if you need any ideas or any feature. I'd be happy to, communicate and, expand
I
this.
will, I will. Thank you,
There, are- there
Kristen,
is
for
there,
thank you for
there is a
hosting
lot
him.
of
Very interesting.
There is a lot of work in technology adoption. There are, thousands of work. But if you look at them, I mean, Rogers is more like diffusion. I am doing more adoption. I mean, Rogers is more how this is spread to a region. I am more specifically working individual motivations, and it is very hard to model a comprehensive behavior. I mean, when you look at the studies, one study maybe look at risk aversion, one study might look at education, human capital, one study might look at like our social capital, because it's very difficult to model a human being in a survey. So therefore, if you could add a little bit of individual factors, I think that's a significant contribution to the area.
Yeah, I'll be looking at scaling.
Sure,
That's another factor. Okay,
sure.
thank you. I'm taking too much of your time.
No,
Let's
that's
set up
fine.
another Zoom, okay, please.
Sure. Just send me an
Kristen,
email.
thank you very much for this.
Thanks for your questions, Raymond. It's really, really great. So if anybody else has any questions, any final questions, make sure you get them in now. While we're waiting to see if anybody has any questions, I'll just give a plug for our upcoming events because we have our social capital research design sessions with Dr. Beverly Sloan happening this Thursday. And next week, our next webinar is on social capital and AI, which is a very hot topic at the moment. So that'll be a very interesting one next week. You can find out information on our website. So it doesn't seem like we have any final questions. So Haluk, thanks very much on behalf of the association and all participants for taking the time to give this webinar. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Tristan. I greatly appreciate the opportunity and having the chance to meet with you all. So I would be happy to communicate over email and exchanging ideas. So thank you so much. I greatly appreciate
No,
that.
thank you. And we'll make the
Thank
slides
you.
available to participants.
Yes, please. Thank you. And also the email and the studies. Kristen, can I set up a Zoom with you later on to discuss this? Because
Yeah,
this is precisely my research. Uh,
sure thing.